Good evening. It's 6 o'clock on Monday, and we are having a meeting of the Parks and Recreation Committee, and we have been asked as a recommendation that council accepts the recommendation of the Park Board Commission to name a newly created prairie reserve on the north parcels of Duke Park, the Robinson Reserve at Duke Park, and the committee is going to take a look at that, and we have Mr. Twilliger and Mr. Phillips and myself, Jeff Schilling, attending. Would you like to provide any additional details, Mr. Tillington?
So you have a report on the meeting that was held by the Park Board. We made a recommendation, and the Park Board approved the creation of a prairie reserve at Duke Park, whereby we would use a portion of the Hughes Camp or northern Duke Park area, specifically, I guess, northwest area along the river. Actually, it's between the river and not between, but we have that, our property, then we have the Miami County Park District property that we sold as part of the transaction to buy the Hughes Camp property, and then you have the river. The County Park District created a kind of a wetlands project, a passive space project. They will be building 2 overlooks as part of that project. In your packet, specifically in attachment 1, the rendering that you see, actually in both, but that's attachment 1 shows the larger version. You can see what the reserve would look like. It would be prairie, it would be sedge, milkweed, pollinator type plantings, as well as some new trees, forestation, and approximately 1.5 miles of gravel walking path. We specifically did not want to hardscape that because we don't want to encourage bikes. This is not part of the bike trail. This would just be a walking area, much like you see out at Hobart Urban Nature Preserve. This is a reserve, not a preserve. A preserve means that when you have that land, you occupy that land for that purpose, it's always going to stay that purpose. In this case, it's a reserve. We're reserving that property for any kind of future use. However, having said that, we don't ever see this reserve, this prairie, going away. It may constrict at the south side of it, the longer, narrower side, as we contemplate and come up with the funding resources to build ball fields in the future. And we could push that back, thus allowing for some parking area along the east side of that. As part of the discussion with the Park Board, and given the fact that half of this project would be funded by an up to $30,000 grant, or 50%, whichever is less than the total cost, through the Duke Foundation, which was established by Pat and Tom Robinson of the Paul G. Duke family. The recommendation is that the reserve be called the Robinson Reserve at Duke Park. We would have directional signage, we would have an interpretive sign, and we would have an entrance sign to the area that would blend into the rest of the signage out there. But that with council's approval, that's the name that we would put with that area. Several years ago, council passed a policy document dictating how and when infrastructure, facilities, areas could be named after individuals or groups. As you see in the report, we did go through the criteria and outlined the 10 criteria and how this recommendation fits that criteria. It is a facility because even though it's part of Duke Park, it is a designated area. And so that counts as needing council's approval. It's not a street name, so it's not going to confuse any addresses. It's named for two non-public office-holding individuals. They have volunteered for well over 12-year minimum, which is part of the criteria. The Robinsons have given permission to have the area named for them. There is a relationship between the facility and their namesake, since the entire park is named after Mrs. Robinson's father, Paul G. Duke. There is not a memorial, nor does the name include memorial. We would have an interpretive sign that would explain the area and the relationship. The Robinsons did not request this naming. We do anticipate that this reserve is going to last and be there for quite a long time. I started to talk about if you look at it on the rendering, it kind of looks like a P. The neck or the stem of the P may narrow, but the northern part, which is 19.5 acres, that has never been contemplated for any kind of sports area. So we don't anticipate that would be, anything else would be done. It's a nice natural buffer between the park and the residential area to the north and east. And again, the park board did recommend to the council that the naming be Robinson Reserve.
Questions from the committee?
Where'd the two ponds get dug?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Aren't there two ponds that have been created?
Ponds?
If you come in on that dirt road just adjacent to the Hewells Camp house, which I'm assuming is this dotted line between potential ball fields and the preserve? Yes, preserve. Isn't there towards the river? Didn't Donnie Knight dig two ponds back there?
Well, they dug a wetlands area.
So it's not standing water?
It's, well, I wouldn't say it's standing water, but it is more,
Is this what
it's
they,
a calm area. That's where he took all that dirt out and piled it up on the Hewells Camp property. And that was part of the project that he had with Scott Myers in the Park District. So
That
it's
is
more of a
outside-
wetlands, oxbow area, and it's on their property adjacent to the river on the west side where you see Miami County Park District property there.
Yep.
It's in
So
that
it's
area.
outside the boundaries of this specific unit?
Correct.
Okay.
the endowment that's talked about in here, once it's mentioned that it's a potential endowment, and then in another area it says it is an endowment, there is an endowment. Do we have a final definitive answer on that?
I don't know where it says it's definitive. They are still looking at that. They're interested in doing that. They have not locked into a number yet.
The Miami County Parks overlooks, I assume they're on their property.
Yes, correct.
And we have no additional driveway entrances other than the existing parking by the baseball fields on the south end of the park.
Correct. And that's why you see that dotted line
Right.
coming between there. It connects to the existing main parking lot.
Right, got it. And farming contracts, is construction on this going to interfere with any of the existing contracts that we have on the farming property?
No, the contract is for 1 year with possible extension, and so we will work around that contract.
And in the potential future build of any baseball fields, are we going to go ahead and do any grading on that particular area as we grade this entire reserve area? Are we going to take those hills and bumps and things? Are we going to be doing anything with that potential ballpark area for grading and drainage?
Not as part of this project, no.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Titterington?
Nope.
Mr. Fuller, okay. I don't have any questions. Staff, any, Mr. Whitten, any questions? What's our preference here, gentlemen?
And this is not an emergency?
It's not an emergency?
I concur with staff request and park board recommendation.
Move ahead.
I think we can move ahead on this thing. Is there any other business coming forward the committee
No,
tonight?
sir.